right, we're recording. I'm David Gregory. All right,
I'll introduce us.
I literally had to think about my own. Go ahead.
All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Silicon Valley Spirituality Show. This week, I have a very special guest, my good friend, David Casler. We met a few years ago when I moved up to Sacramento from the Bay. He's actually my first good friend that I met out here. So I am very happy to have him on this show. And I believe, most of my guests were more maybe Silicon Valley business oriented. And then I had some people that were very spiritually oriented. And Dave, to me, is a great combination of the two. So, David, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience real quickly?
Yeah, so David Gregory, former Marine, former anti-terrorism Marine, and got out, did contracting in Iraq, doing the security contracting, did that for a year, got blown up, had to learn and walk and talk again. And through that whole life experience, found deeper levels of myself, and then got into psychedelic, found breath work, loved doing breath work, and then loved teaching breath work, like the psychedelics without psychedelic. So I could take soccer mom and have them experience an existential dimension or reality in a very safe manner, to where they were in total control. Whereas when we're doing plant medicine, sometimes we're not in total control. And that's exactly what the medicine wants. It's taking away your belief or it's basically about surrender. So breath work was the safest way to help people surrender into their own.
Mm. Yeah. And you're also an entrepreneur, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Yeah. I own care homes for the elderly, and I kind of like segued into that after kind of like being forcefully retired from the contracting. And I found deep levels of love and joy and satisfaction in being around people that were passing away and needed somebody to provide the service, compassionate care as their loved one, transmutated their human form into their spiritual form.
Mm.
And so, yeah, we do a lot of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS.
And then you also created some technology around this as well, right?
Yeah, I, I got so frustrated with my industry because we have middleman, these agents in the middle that charge a lot of exuberant fees, and the majority of people in my industry are um, immigrants, hardworking immigrants, but not business savvy immigrants. So these agents were really taking advantage of them. And I started a software company called Perfect Circle. The whole premise was, we have the care home, we have that inventory. Let's help the families find the care that they need and just remove the middleman and bridge it over them. And that was 2.5 year process of failing and succeeding and failing, succeeding, and then it's now working. So we're watching the progress and constantly learning about what we do better.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So I think the audience has a pretty good idea of who you are now. You came from a military background. I think you and I bonded right away because you had just come back from Costa Rica, from arrhythmia,
Yeah.
doing psychedelics. So a large portion of this audience are, I would say, at least psychedelic curious. So can you just give us a little bit of how did you end up in Costa Rica? Why did you go do psychedelics down there? And how did it benefit
I think everything is Genesis. You meet one person that does something, you hear it, you either accept it or deny it, or it sounds crazy or it sounds interesting. Um, when I went to Summit, and Summit is a curated experience for entrepreneurs and creatives and amazing people. And I was at Summit and brought my best friend Micah, and he was like, "Hey, in the morning we're gonna do you want to do breath work?" It's like 7 a.m. I'm like, "What is breath work?" He's like, I think our buddy does it. Like a static dancing. We're gonna breathe and dance and jump around. And I said 7 a.m. He's like, "Yeah, 7 a.m." And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds fucking. I'm good." Like, I want to sleep. We're partying all night. Good people. I don't want to get up at 7 a.m. and do something. And he said, "Do you trust me?" "Yeah, I trust you." So we did it, and we are all in a circle, and there was an awesome DJ, and the DJ was the facilitator. And basically they said, "You're gonna do 2 breaths in, 1 breath out. You're gonna lay down. You're gonna experience, a vibration. You may like lose yourself, like whatever comes to you, just embrace it, move through it." And I did it, and like I was one out of 40 people who had the same amazing existential experience where we left our bodies. We went somewhere else. Um, God, source energy, whatever you want to call it, whatever construct works for you. And in that moment, I was like, wow, this is powerful. And I think I have the calling to do it. I want to do it. And before that, or no, so in that, I met an amazing guy that would become my CFO for my company temporarily. And he just told me about, hey, me and my wife, we went to this place, like uh, it's like a Temple of Eden or something. I can't remember what it, uh, and it's a mushroom experience, psilocybin, if guided, she's a little shaman, and it's an amazing experience. It brought us closer. So I was like, oh man, that sounds something like I would want to do with my ex-partner. So I kind of like started talking about it, um, and kind of like seeding that that would be maybe really cool for us. And she surprised me and got it, and we went. And it was a very, we did a hero's dose, 5 milligrams of psilocybin, teacher or golden teachers in a very safe environment, following the MAPS guidelines, using the John Hopkins curated playlist. You're in your cocoon. Very healing. It's an inward journey. And in that inward journey, I literally found myself sitting up like Buddha style, receiving all these amazing downloads, and I could see how the formation of the software that I was building and what it needed to be, how it would serve, uh, and the long term possibilities of it. And then I was heavily invested into cryptocurrency, and then this download came to me that cryptocurrency is the finite monetary tool that you invest into it at the level of capability that you have, whether it's maybe $1,000 or $1, but because of the finite nature of cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, that as it goes, the difficulty to mine it increases, which is a deflationary thing. And the whole concept was you get back what you put into it.
Mhm.
And some people only have a little bit to put into it, but you're going to get percentagely wise what anybody else. It's a very stable thing. And it wasn't really about having $1,000, $10,000 to put in it. It was like, what are you willing to give? What are you willing to invest? Um, and that whole concept was like, oh, yeah, like humans in general, what is their capacity to give and invest in themselves and have faith? It was just like the whole thing that was like, I'm high tripping on mushrooms. And it was just kind of like just whipping around me. And the greater concept of we're all equal. We all have what we have to give, and nothing is, you know, better or worse because maybe you only have $1 to give. But if you would have invested $1 in 2010 into Bitcoin, you would have had something like 10 Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin is worth $70,000. So you would have had $700,000 if you had the patience to invest in faith. That was the big thing. Faith. Do you have the faith to invest? Most people that only had $1 or $5, $10, let alone $1,000, would be multi-millionaires. So it didn't really have anything to do with money. It was just the concept of faith. What do you have faith?
Yeah. And prior to this psilocybin journey, were you a person of faith, or what was your faith?
I've always considered myself a Gnostic Christian, and the Gnostics were people that were hunted down, killed by the Roman Catholic Church. Just they their gospel destroyed because the most important gospel in the Gnostic Christian faith is the gospel of Thomas Didymus, like who's said to be the brother of Jesus.
Mhm.
So right then, the Catholic Church, no, he wasn't married, he never had kids. We are the way, we are the path. And what Thomas said, Jesus said, was on the account of um, like heaven. He said, Jesus said, if you look to the sky, are not the birds closer to the kingdom of heaven than you? If you look to the sea, are not the fish closer to the kingdom of heaven than you? Verily I say to you, the kingdom of heaven is within you and without.
Mhm.
And what that meant was everything you see is a part of the kingdom of heaven. Like when you look for a murderer, uh, anything, that is a part of you because you are the kingdom. It's a part of the oneness, the Christ consciousness, the universal source energy. We're not separate from anything. And then if you look inside yourself, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Like all you have to do is meditate and like go deep. If you're not afraid to look at yourself, you'll find that not just metaphysically, quantum physically, there are trillions of bacteria, um, viruses, molds in our body that if we took them out, we now know we would die because we were very symbiotic with the other entity. So why not conceptualize that if I am one with everything, there are things that I cannot see. So then I wanted to do ayahuasca, not because I wanted to do it, not because I was called to do it, because I was afraid to do it.
Mm.
And my same partner, like, uh, got me my trip to Rhythmia. I did not want to go to Rhythmia. I was like, oh, I prefer to Rhythmia of like 150 people. I want something small in the jungle. And, she didn't listen to me, thankfully, and got me Rhythmia. And then I was like, after my arrhythmia experience, I was like, God, I'm so glad I went to arrhythmia. And I did this in a little bit more of a posh setting, but with the best medical team in the world should something go. And subsequently, I had a friend that went there and his heart stopped and they brought him back. And
Wow.
if he was in the jungle doing that, he would have died. Like the rare, rare, rare case. Um, so when I did ayahuasca, the first day was, oh, I know everything. Oh, Mother Aya showed me everything. The second day was, oh, I know things. I don't know. Fuck, I don't know yet. Oh, like, how did I think I knew everything? I'm so humble. And then the third day, oh, I know even less. Uh, and there's this beautiful thing that happens with our psyche and our mind, and our soul and our spirit. When we think we know everything, we stop growing because there's nothing you are willing to learn. I know everything. This is what I've been told, religion, whatever construct, social beliefs, um, political beliefs. You stop expanding your mind, you actually contract your mind. And so what, what plant medicine does is it provides you the ability to expand your own like belief system or understanding, or what we say, consciousness. And the best thing I've ever heard is like, if consciousness is a circle, everything that you know is within that circle. Now, everything you don't know is actually within that circle. Because you don't speak German. Like I know I don't speak English.
Mm.
So that's still within the realm of things that you know. You know what you don't know. Everything outside of that circle of consciousness is what we don't know that we don't know. That where the fucking like the magic is. Because if you're willing to step outside the circle, then you're gonna experience something better or worse, but just different. And that will expand your mind. And so when you're doing psychedelics, that's the whole point. Like you're entering your fear, you're facing your fear. And when you get to a point where I'm not afraid anymore, then it's like, oh, thank you. I can actually show you even more because you weren't ready to see there. And my favorite analogy is um, not Abraham, Noah, Ten Commandments.
Okay.
Uh, so my brain fluctuating. So the Ten Commandments were given, and it was a burning bush that gave the Ten Commandments, and God speaking through the burning bush. So ever since then, people have debated, oh, the atheists, bushes don't burn. The scientists, oh, well, did you rub two berries and sticks from the oil that it could burn? The ultra religious, God spoke through a burning bush. Plain and simple. When I did ayahuasca, it occurred to me that God or fourth energy or Mother Aya will only talk to you and on a level that you can comprehend. So some people can only comprehend like little blue space alien. Other people see the frog that talks to them. And he saw a burning bush. That was his level of comprehension to speak to God. And then we were like, oh, but no one's ever had a burning bush ever talk to them again. Like, yeah, why would a burning bush talk to you? That's not your level of comprehension. If, if God came down in the form of an alien in a spaceship or beamed down, that could have blown his mind. And it was just too much for him to grasp. Then, he's like, bro, I'm trying to give you the 10 Commandments, and you're paying more attention to the spaceship because you've never seen anything fly through space. And it's like, no, like, it's going to come, the message will come to you on the level you can comprehend it. And guess what? If you meditate and get to the place within you, the message will still come without any plant.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. There was a lot to unpack there, but most importantly to me was about like how people receive messages. I know that when I heard about plant medicine, I read a lot about Terrence McKenna seeing machine elves. I never saw machine elves, and I thought, what's wrong with like me, or like how come I can't see these same things that I hear other people describe? And what I ended up realizing was my coworker and I, we used to travel a lot, and we would do psychedelics once we were done with like our trade shows and stuff. And he was really into fashion. And even when we would smoke DMT, he would be like, I see the Louis Vuitton logo or the Nike logo. And I was like, I don't see anything
Right.
like that, but I started realizing, just like what you said, it's that it communicates in a way where you're able to understand it. And so, coming back from Rhythmia, having this transcendent, transformative experience, what would you say is the biggest shift that happened before Rhythmia and then after Rhythmia?
Before Rhythmia, I was at one level of consciousness. After Rhythmia, I was at another. And I've loved the way you've taught me about spiral dynamic and the emphasis on there's no good or bad, not better or worse. It's just different levels of our expansion of our consciousness and understanding ourselves. And through ourselves, we understand other. So there's beautiful things within religion that people take, I think, really for granted because they are religious, but they're not spiritual.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things is if you're too religious, you become judgmental. If you're too spiritual, you become delusional. And so finding that beautiful middle ground, the spiritual aspects of the doing the plant medicine, where like making me conscious, it was then when you see more than what I saw, um, and I had already had this a level of empathy because I'm an empath, but a deeper understanding that when I see this person strung out on drugs, balled up in a corner, that that is not just another human being, that is a part of me because I am the one consciousness. I am connected to the one vibration of everything. God is not separate from me. He's not somebody I have to go to church to see, but you can. That's a beautiful construct and it works. And if it works for you, great. When you become judgmental, who are you? And in the deepest, darkest parts of my enlightenment and my ability to be more conscious was when I had a very traumatic thing happen to me. And there's a guy that I really wanted to kill. I wanted to destroy his life. I thought, you're a healer, but you're a fucking charlatan. You're hurting other people. And you're having an affair and you're all these things. And the voice came to me because I was open to hear it. Who are you, David? Why do you think you're better than him? You are him. It wasn't a loving voice. It was, who the fuck do you think you are? And it was just, when I heard that, I instantly started crying and laughing at the same time because it occurred to me, oh shit, I am him. I have been him. I've done this. Who the fuck do I think I am to judge him? Because I've done the same thing. I've destroyed a marriage. Oh, wow. That's the shit you don't want to ever say out loud because shame or you're ignorant. I'm like, in order to, ooh, hit me. In order to honestly be authentic and embrace who I am, I have to embrace the light and the shadow. Because if I don't do that, I cannot be the man I want to be because I don't even know who he is because I'm too afraid or too ignorant or too pompous or too narcissistic to say the man I am is an amazing man, but I can be better. And what does that look like?
Mhm.
That looks like dealing with my own bullshit and my own trauma and stepping into a future that is so unknown that it scares me.
Wow. Wow. One of the things that I'd be curious about is I've also had a similar experience where I realize all these people that I'm judging, all these people that I have these negative feelings or vitriol toward, they have a lot of these things about themselves that really remind me of stuff that I haven't reconciled in myself. Now, the question I have for you is, as I've gotten more into this spiritual world and have more spiritual friends, I've definitely seen there's like a wide spectrum of spirituality. And I've noticed that there's a lot of people that use spirituality to bypass. And so something horrible could happen and they'll be like, well, we are just all one. This is all an illusion. This is no big deal that this happened to this person. And in many ways, I'm like, well, I get it that on a meta level, we are all one and this is all an illusion, but that person just lost their auntie, like, just saying like this is all kind of like just an illusion or this is just something in your head to me doesn't feel like they're honoring like
Yeah.
what actually happened. So in this scenario where I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but in my opinion, you were completely justified to be angry and feeling like this person tore apart your personal life. But you were also able to see, wow, I see him in me. So how do you reconcile those two things where this person did something that was really bad to your family, but still having enough capacity to not want to kill him?
It's a deep, deep level of humility. Because I could say in that moment, it is not about him. It is not about the other person. This is my gift. And I'm not going to let anybody take it away.
Mm,
This is my karma. I accept what I've done to another family person that caused chaos in their life. Oh, shit. Now I'm feeling what that guy felt. And this other person was put into my life to make me feel that way. And if I accepted the mess with humility and grace for the man I was, and humility, the man I am right now experiencing this, then I will be rewarded with my own resilience to stand up and say, you know what? I forgive you. I forgive you both. It's not about you, it's about me. And I'm going to be a better man. I'm not going to be that man that I was. Thank you for showing me like that's what I needed because there was that man was still there. He was there was still remnant of him and he hadn't been fully or more so fully loved the wounded little boy that I was that made me have affairs and made me do stupid shit, even though I'm a good guy, like I'm not an evil person. But that doesn't mean shit to the other
yeah.
person is receiving it. Doesn't matter how good the person was. He did what he did and it destroyed my family. Uh, who am I? I'm no better. I did the same thing. I destroyed another person. So reconciling it is uniquely human. It's not perfect. It is based on the limited knowledge of self, our limited bandwidth, our consciousness is so different between one person and 100 people. And that's where the spiral dynamics that you taught me comes in. Valuing, honoring, and loving people where they're at. And when we have a higher bandwidth and consciousness, then we are able to see what they can't see because we've been through that, what they've been through. And we can, if we choose, not our job to guide people into the light. It's just our job to hold love and space and let them heal themselves. So when we talk about, the healer, the spiritual bypassing, it's usually the healers, and I've been one of them, so I know, been that guy like, oh, like, I'm using my powers for not necessarily evil, but self-serving gain. And I had to learn that. And thank you for all the people that were unfortunately maybe a part of that uneasiness that helped me learn, okay, I have to hold space. As a healer, what does that look like? It looks like pulling my desires back and being there for them, how they need me to be by how I want to be. Because that is spiritual bypassing and spiritual delusion, spiritual grandeur. And a person that is all light will never, well, doesn't, see, I'm saying absolute. Uh, have to go back. A person that is all light runs the risk of never having the capability to shine the light on their own dark. They won't turn the light toward themselves and illuminate darkness within them so they can see it and be like, oh shit, like I'm doing something I think is good, but I'm actually harming people. They're just so focused on shining light at everybody else's darkness and blinding them sometimes with it. And it's like the difference between staring at the sun and staring at a candle. The spiral dynamic that you taught me, there are people that you cannot shine the sun in their eyes. They're not ready. But man, they are ready for a candle, something gentle. And they don't have to jump from like level 3 to 7. That's not their karmic soul's contract, everything. It's like, and we're not even required to do that. It's like, do no harm. If you're going to heal somebody, like, yeah, do no harm.
Yeah. The one thing that really stood out to me was when you talked about needing to heal your inner wounded child. Most men, when I tell them, like, I need to heal this or heal that, they are typically surprised. They're like, hey, you do well in life. You're creating these things. Like, what needs to be healed? You seem like everything is going well in your life. And for a large portion of my life, I would just look at what my external achievements were and just real or think like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with me. Like I came from, a nuclear family. My parents didn't divorce. I don't have any trauma and just really be blind to a lot of these things that were, like you said, I'm a good guy, but every once in a while, like some negative behavior would come out. And then I realized, wow, there's a lot of stuff that I haven't reconciled. So, I'm curious, um, I think it's important for men to be talking about this. I recently talked about, or I was speaking with a group of people, and they had said, like, never be vulnerable in front of your wife. If you're ever vulnerable in front of your wife, she's going to lose respect for you, and like everything's going to fall apart. And I started explaining to them, like, that's not the world that I live in. And they seem to be so rigid about the ideology that they believed in where, they were calling me gay. They were just really just behaving in a way where I was like, I should let them have it. But I also realized, wow, there's the way they see things. Like I've been there before and just really try to be patient and open, even though they weren't responding similarly. So for the people listening, not just men, but everyone listening that may think like they have some unresolved trauma, what would be some like tips or clues as to like you might have something that is unresolved within you that you should shine the light on?
Or you just said it. If you're and those guys have it all backwards. If you're not willing to be vulnerable, that is the number one red flag that you have some really deep trauma. Because vulnerability, we're all, you know, beautiful kids, born perfect. There's nothing wrong with us between the ages of 4 and 7. We have psychological split. We either become a narcissist or an empath or somewhere in between. But and if that goes further, then that becomes our personality. And then if we don't get help, yoga, religion, weightlifting, for something that pulls us out and gets confidence, healing, strength, love, 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 then that becomes our reality. And that's how you see people going through the world. And they're just so negative. And they're like, it's just, yeah, because they got hurt. And so vulnerability is the first thing that is stripped from us in trauma
Mm,
because you were vulnerable, right? You're a little girl, little boy, and then somebody you trusted came into your life and started touching you in a way that you knew didn't feel right, but you trusted them. So you were vulnerable, right? And now you start second guessing yourself. Um, I don't, I can't even trust myself. I can't be vulnerable because when I'm vulnerable, people hurt me. People take advantage of me. So vulnerability, all the people that you're hearing talk negatively about vulnerability are people that haven't resolved their trauma, their
mm,
first trauma. And so when I talk about like divine man, divine masculine, the divine feminine, these are people who understand vulnerability is the only currency I trade in.
wow.
Like you're either vulnerable or you're not. And if you're not willing to be vulnerable, I can't really trust you to trust yourself and do the work for yourself. I'm going to be babysitting you. People are like, oh, you want to fix me or heal me. And that's most people get in relationships. Like, oh, I think I can fix them. I think I can heal them. I can think it. It's well intentioned, but they don't even have the tool to understand that when you're healing somebody, you are not healing them. You are just providing space and safe container for which they can be vulnerable, maybe for the first time, and tell you the deepest, darkest secret of their life and trauma. And that only comes from the feeling of you're not going to judge me. If I feel you're not going to judge me, then I feel I can tell you something that I'm very ashamed about that I've never told anybody. Because if I tell you, you're going to judge me. And mine, and I've openly talked about it because I've healed that. Mine, and I had never, for the last couple of years, I had never, ever, ever told anybody about this. And there was one person that like I felt so comfortable with to like, okay, I'm gonna tell this. Let's see how got the balls to see how it goes. And I'm like, because she was being vulnerable with me. And I said, so when I was a kid, maybe there was a boy, I think he's maybe 8. And we were playing at his house, and then he pulled down his pants. This, I don't know. It's like, get down your knees in your mouth. So I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a 6-year-old kid, like,
Oh,
penises and vagina.
yeah, yeah.
And he's an older kid. So I'm thinking, I trust him. And I got down on my knees. And before he could put his penis in my mouth, he put it like maybe like 4 inches from it and literally pissed in my mouth. And right then and there, I remember this
Oh,
salty hitting me, and I'm so confused. And right then, his mom comes around the corner. She's like, she's freaking out. I don't have any memory of that, blank, and that's a trauma response because we either highly remember or highly feel, and our brains are segregated into the masculine and feminine, the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere. Um, and our brains are not in sync. And it's like you're either going to remember it or you're going to feel it. And if you feel it, you're not going to have a really good memory. If you memorize it, you're going to disassociate the feeling. And we do that because at that time, we could feel both. Our brain damn near would fucking, like we would have a psychological breakdown, which people do. And for years, I never told anybody about that because I'm like, I'm a Marine. If I tell my Marine buddies who I feel safe with, 'cause they're talking about some of the stuff maybe they've gone through. If I say that as a Marine, no one will ever look at me again. They're going to look at me like cocksucker, faggot. Oh, are you gay then? Like, that doesn't mean that they would actually have said that. But that was my fear, the fear and the shame of judgment. And when I had the chance to tell another human being about that, that person looked at me and was just like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like, no, I don't think negatively of you. I don't, because my thing is, if I told a woman that, she will never kiss.
yeah, yeah.
She would never, if she would never be around my mouth because I got pissed in it. And that's fucking real fear. And all of a sudden, she's dispelling that fear and not caring. And it's like, oh, wow, there's safe space. Oh, no, no, no. There are safe people. And
Mm.
other people can be judgmental. And those are people that reinforce our fear, retract our vulnerability. And we don't heal in those relationships. We actually contract.
Mhm.
So then it's really important to understand what relationship are you in with yourself and others. And if this is expansive or contracting, we usually don't know the difference because we're all trauma bonded and all these. But when you step out and you get even more vulnerable, the universe sends you people to come into your life and through their own embodiment and energy, put you in a safe space for you to heal yourself and recognize these things that like, whoa, I was afraid of that. And this person just did that, but they did it in a safe way, or I expressed something and this person didn't judge me. They didn't yell at me. They're like, oh no, I've had that too. Oh, wow.
So you never told the story for ever since it happened until you were an adult. And then how did it feel after you were able to actually say it out loud?
I said it aloud and I got love back. And that love transmuted the fear. Then it became, I don't fucking care here. Because I I love the things that have happened to me. I embrace them. Because when I tell this story, and I will tell it to any person, if they judge me, good. That's the filter the universe has given me to use to filter them out. I don't need judgmental people around my life. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank
Wow.
you for leaving. Um, and then the people that do stay, That's my tribe. They're my people. Uh, so yeah, um, it, we talk about post-traumatic stress, PTSD. The most beautiful thing is when you get to that point of consciousness and authenticity and vulnerability, that your demons become your post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, yeah.
The Which is flashing before my eyes. It mm, It'll come back to me. So, so I'll let it simmer.
Yeah, it'll come back.
Yeah.
It'll come back. But you know, like you just shared two very vulnerable stories. One about your family being ripped apart by this healer. Uh, we're just being we want to respect all the people. So we're just kind of talking around it, but I think you guys could pick up on what we're cooking. And then you shared another story about something very traumatic when you were younger. And you know, it's interesting. This group that I was in talking about these things, they look at vulnerability as cowardice. And to me, I look at vulnerability as like the ultimate in courage. You know, you're really showing like this most sensitive, tender part of you. And I believe when you can tap into that, it allows other people to tap into that around you. And what I really love about like these stories of you transmuting these negative things is it went from shame to like superpower. And in one of my meditations, I've had like a few like arch rivals in my life that like, you know, every time I'm succeeding, I'm like, man, I hope this guy reads this Facebook post and sees
Hmm.
like how well I'm doing. And in one of my meditations, I was kind of like asking my higher self, like, why do I keep on thinking about these people when it was like 30 years ago, you know? And it was showing me that part of my full plan was that these people actually came in to play these roles in my life to really help me grow. And not only that, it wasn't like a separate like soul or spirit. It was like we belong to this same oversoul. So it was actually me doing these things to me so that I could grow and respond to these things. And it was such like kinda like a mindfuck concept, but I know, like,
Yeah.
it would resonate with you, but yeah, like, I mean, thinking like, "Wow, this person that did this, not only did I have similar characteristics, but maybe it was me to help me with this lesson," you know? I'm just
Yeah.
curious, what are your thoughts as I shared that?
So, like, think of ourselves as we are at 1 p.m. and at 2 p.m. that's our higher self. Yeah. And at 12, that's our lower self. And it infinitely goes up. And time is a construct. But let's see this line all at once. So if you could see the infinite people above you or farther down the timeline, that is you as you gain knowledge and wisdom, experience. Everybody below that timeline, behind you, they're not better or worse, but they're behind you in consciousness. That's the person you were 10 years ago, the person you were 5 years. And when you go infinitely more down, then you see the drug abuser, the homeless person, you see the person walking on the street screaming randomly. Well, if you talk about like reincarnation and our karma, you were all those people, but now you were dropped in to this timeline at higher, maybe conscious level, couple more hours down the road,
Yeah.
but you were all those people behind and forward. So then it becomes like quantum physics, this beautiful place where you stop and you look back and you look forward and you realize that you are all these people. I am the beggar. I am the king. I am all of them. And when you, in my belief, when you start becoming one with everything, that's when you're kind of like moving up to a level of super consciousness. Because down the timeline, 10 years, there's an angel in a metaphorical, you know, situation. And down the timeline, there was a devil. And you were all things all at once at every time, just separated by your ego that says, I am David. This is what I believe. I believe in Buddha. I believe in God. I believe Satan. I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in anything. The permanent word. I don't. I would never. And coming out of my psychedelic experience at Arrhythmia, I came out saying, the only don't I have is I don't know shit. I don't know shit. Even what I'm saying right now, in another timeline, you know, 2 months from now, I may hear something and be like, wow, I was actually maybe wrong, but I was close. Or maybe I'm totally wrong on that. Do I have the vulnerability to say, yeah, I was wrong? And that sounds really cool. Like that sounds more of what I think I believe in now. So I am going to go on this journey. I'm never going to say this is the way.
Yeah.
This is the one way. So in going back to like one of the original conversations we were talking about, when somebody says this is the only path, I look at them and say, yeah, you're a gatekeeper. Your ego is off the chart because you think there's only one path to God or spirituality or the afterlife or whatever that is. And it's infinite.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, a couple of things. Well, number one is, I used to actually beat myself up quite a bit because even though the spiritual path has been fairly new to me, I've always been on like the self-development, personal growth path. And I would always feel like, oh man, I just figured it out like when I was 25 and then 30 and then 35 and then 40 and then 45 and go, wow. I would look back and go, that was such a like naive way to think, and
Yeah.
then always think there's this next thing. And what I came to realize was whatever it was that I learned at that stage was exactly what I needed to learn to start building the foundation so that I could learn these deeper concepts. And then the other thing that you said that really stood out to me was like, I'm all these other people, I'm all these other people. And I remember in one of my meditations, like, I understood this kind of like on this intellectual level, but I didn't really like feel it. Like I'm like, I just know me, just Seibo. Like I can kind of empathize with other people, but like this we are all one thing was like, it sounded like a cool story. Like I am Hitler, I am Biden, I am Trump. But like in my experience, it was like, nah, I just Sabo. And so in one of my meditations, what it was showing me was, and so I typically, when I get visions, they always show me in like technology.
Mhm.
And so what it was showing me was like on a lower level of consciousness, it's like you're just wearing like a VR headset and then you experience your singular VR headset and that seems like reality. Then when you start expanding your consciousness, it's almost like you grow like this second head and then you could put on two VR goggles.
Mhm.
Then you're experiencing like, hey, what it's like to be like a man and then a woman. And then you just keep like scaling this thing up until you're like this infinite VR set where or infinite amount of heads with infinite VR headsets, and
Mhm.
then you're able to experience like all of that simultaneously. So it was showing me that, yeah, you have this physical body that has like a hardware system, and this hardware system is only like one headset at a time. But as you expand your consciousness, you're going to be able to like deeply empathize with someone to the point where like you can almost experience what it's like. And then it's like putting on multiple headsets, and then you have like enough brain processing power
Yeah.
to like experience all of that at a single time.
Yeah, definitely. When I did my last psilocybin journey where I was just hiking, uh, beautiful setting, I was teaching breath work, and on the last day we take 1.5 gram, go on hike, very safe. You get in control of.
Yep.
There's no I'm out of control, and I I always call myself a sigma male, meaning I am not an alpha. Like I don't. I will lead when it's time, but if somebody else can do something better, do it. I don't care. Like, I don't need the accolade. But if something is critical and not needs to be done, I will step in because I know I'm the most qualified person. If I'm not the most qualified person, I won't.
Yep.
Disillusion of ego. Um, so I tend to start my journey on a hike with the group. Like I'm the mother energy, make sure everybody's good. Everybody's good. Okay, everybody's good. But at a certain point, I want to detach. Like I'm hearing everybody's story. Maybe I'm telling a story, but there's a certain beauty of detaching from the, because then you are left with your thoughts. What do I think about this beautiful tree? What do I think about my son experimenting with drugs and me being afraid and maybe being very harsh on him, demanding like, almost crushing because of my fear that he's going to end up like his uncle or something. And in that, the medicine allows me to delve deeper within myself and like find some answers and empathy. And it actually came out, oh, your son, who is an energetic being, who's going through spiritual awakening, and he's losing his connection to source. And he's not trying to use drugs to be facetious or malicious or like, a bad person. He's trying to use it to see if he can get back to the feeling. Because we talk about when you're born perfect, there's nothing wrong with you. Between the ages of 4 and 7, traditionally, could be long or farther down the line, we have a psychological split. And that psychological split stops our vulnerability. It steals our gifts, takes away from a lot of what the energetic beings we were. It turns us into robots, have experienced pain, and now we're doing these reactions to the trauma unconsciously. And so in that process, this is everything I'm thinking within minutes. And I'm like, oh, I have to go to my son, sit him down and say, I'm sorry. I see what you don't see and maybe don't understand. You're losing beautiful connection that you've always had to source energy. And you're trying to find it. You don't want to. And that's scary. You're losing part of yourself. And so instead of demonizing him or like, we had this beautiful conversation about my understanding of what he's going through. So he feels seen. He feels like, oh, because I didn't even maybe know what I was doing. Like doing something stupid. I know, but I don't know why. I'm like, oh yeah, the divorce. The divorce
Mm.
catalyzed his psychological split because they were all doing good. And then him on one day before I found out of the illegal, you know, drug experimentation. Not it was more experimentation. But he came in, we're doing our thing, hot tub, moonlight, good music. And this is our thing. Uh, and he breaks down. His girlfriend had just broken up with him, insanely vulnerable, and he starts crying literally breaking down and says, I can't do it. I thought I was okay. I'm not okay. And I'm like, whoa, these are the deepest vulnerable things that he's ever said to me, like about his own feeling. I'm not okay. I'm not okay with yours. I just wanted to go back to where it was when everything was perfect. And everything was never perfect. You know, they saw fucking horrible things they should have seen as kids. And they experienced vibration. But that was what he knew to be safe because that's the only thing he knew. And in that moment, I quantum jumped to when my mother and father divorced and we found out that, you know, like, you know, the reality is my mother had an affair and I hated the guy that she had an affair with. Pissed me off. And so I took all the love letters and stashed them away. My dad was on deployment. So when he got back from deployment, I was still angry at my mom. And I gave him the letter. And the next day, he kicked my mom out of the house. I watched my mother crying, you know, like hysterical, dragging her luggage down. And I didn't know what was going on. My brother didn't know what the fuck is going on. Like my mom's being kicked out of the house. Like that was not my intent. I didn't even realize that until a month ago, or no, a year ago, um, when I had to revisit the memory and the feeling and bind them together and be like, I'm mad at both of us. So as an energetic being, we can feel um, quantum level experiences and emotions. And it's not like it's not resolved. It's the fact that we can go back and experience that. And most people, that is their trauma. They're experiencing the rape, they're experiencing the trauma, and they don't know how to transmute that energy. That it's okay. You're just able to quantum feel the vibration that was there. You can do that for love. You can do that for anything. But when we do it for love, it's like, oh, it's a great memory. Um, but in that moment, I just felt like my anger towards my father that he didn't sit us down. And maybe he did. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I'm judging him because I haven't resolved the whole thing. But my anger for him, like, why didn't you sit us down and say, hey, mom's going to be leaving? Why did you do it that way? Because you're angry. And I had to be traumatized. I didn't even know it. I was traumatized. And at the age of 40 something, it occurred to me, well, that's why like, I have mommy issues. Like, I don't trust women. Uh, I don't trust when a person just does something and doesn't give me like my father, he did something. It didn't give me the like advance notice on or whatever you want to call it to feel into his decision and be sad or okay with it. It was just taken from me. That was taken from me. And in that moment, I'm holding my son and he's crying. And I was like, fuck, he feels the same way. And I'm here in this timeline to hold him and say, I know how you feel, but I'm sorry. I am so sorry. But I'm here right now to experience this with you. And thank God my dad did what he did. Thank God my mom did what she did. It was a negative in the past, but now it set me up for this moment, this very moment, to hold another human and be like, I know how you're feeling. And I know how to, I can, I, I don't know how to feel it, but I know how to hold it.
Mhm.
I know how to hold this energy like my father should, like my mother should. But I accomplish what they wanted from me. Do better, be better. This is the epitome of me being better while not demonizing them. And that, and they're hearing it for the first time. They're probably feeling the shame. It's like, feel it. I'm not going to tell you not to. I don't want you to be like, oh, like it's okay because you did something. You don't have to, no, feel it. Feel into it and then feel the love that came from it, the
Mhm.
shame.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm really glad that your son was able to open up like that to you and not have to hold it in, or maybe, you know, self-harm himself if he didn't feel like he could express himself. And for me, I just wanted to thank you for sharing so many of these vulnerable stories, because to me, this is what real life is about. Like when I think about this podcast, like I've heard a lot of people talk about their professional success coming from nothing, grinding, all these things. Like, yeah, that is an important part of life, but I believe what we're talking about today is what could fundamentally shift how people experience their life, and understand that no matter what you've done or what's been done to you, there is an opportunity for a better future. And for me, I think what resonates the most with me is just being mindful of, like, when I get defensive with my wife or with other people that I perceive are judging me, to really just do some more self-examination and think about what areas of myself that I've been afraid to shine the light on, for fear of maybe seeing something that I don't want to see, or thinking I've gotten over this, but really haven't gotten over it. But whenever I wake up and I feel like tired and lethargic, but I've been eating well, I've been exercising, I've been sleeping well, like I know that there's something in me that I'm avoiding that is just kind of draining like my battery, and not being conscious of it. So I just wanted to really thank you for sharing those stories. And okay, we are at about the time limit. So as I usually do when we wind down, like, you talked about breath work, you talked about how you work with people. If people are interested in exploring what it's like to work with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, go on to Instagram, David.Gregory.Casler, and you'll find me. Yeah. I don't have to say any more than that, because like you'll find me. I'm not trying out to find you, and it'll be what it will be.
Yeah. All right. And then one more thing, now that we've gotten that out of the way, and I'll put the link in the show notes, is I want to just open up the floor. I've asked you a lot of questions, but what is something that is important to you that you'd like to communicate to the people that are listening now?
The only thing I can think of is my deep appreciation for my buddy Seibo, who
Yeah.
has taught me so much. And you are. Uh, it's so funny to sit across from you and kind of like give you your flower, uh, and give you your love and recognition, because I know I can see the infinite timeline. I can see the man I would have been if I hadn't met you, and I can see the difference. I can see the duality, and I can tell you, I'm who I am is deep part of our friendship, and you teaching me as much as I ramble on and like I know like anything or everything. I don't. Uh, and you teaching me about spiral dynamics, holding that space for me, because I remember you were talking about, the different levels, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8. you had said, uh, yeah, when you get up to this level of spirituality, the light is that you're spiritually awakened. Like the dark is that you think that like now that you're enlightened, that you can't, I can't, I just can't talk to people that haven't done yoga. You know, these are my people. And this limitation that your people is also the per- screaming hysterically on the street from mental and drug abuse and all these things. You are everybody. And when you think you're better than everybody, and I had just, yeah, I don't think you caught it, but I was telling you about my experience at Rhythmia. And I said, yeah, since I came back, finding it really hard to like talk to some people that just been done psychedelic. And I caught myself when I'm like, wow, to be truly enlightened is just sit at the foot of everybody, not stand over.
Uh-huh.
You're a student as much as there's teacher, but you're a student always first.
Well, I received that, and it's true. I mean, the reason why I brought you on is I feel like I appreciate that you've learned a lot from me and allowed me to share a lot of like the concepts that I was learning about. So I really appreciate having that sounding board. But the same is true as well. Like I watched how you handled the divorce, how you went through the ups and downs and just really allowed yourself to be in your feelings and not suppress them. And I think the fact that you were a Marine and not just a Marine, but you were doing some pretty crazy shit like in the Middle East, just seeing you like allow yourself and give yourself permission to go to like these depths of emotions really like empowered me to not be afraid to go there. So I know that me fundamentally as a person, I would not have been the same without meeting you as well. So super happy. I love you, Dave. I'm so happy we had a chance to do this. I just thought we have another guest here. So
Mhm.
why don't we just hang out? But I'm really happy that we had this discussion because it is I wasn't too sure. I was just open to our discussion, but it to me it got like really deep, and that's what I want for these discussions is to have something like meaningful, not just a piece of entertainment for someone to listen to while they're driving to work. I want them to go, wow, like this listening to this has fundamentally shifted my frequency. I'm a better person because of it, and hopefully by them feeling like a better person instead of being in the service to self mindset, they could be the service to others. And hopefully we could start rebuilding, this beautiful world we live in.
It takes a good coach or it takes a good host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Love it.
Love you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this podcast. If you really enjoyed it, please reach out to david.gregory.casler on Instagram. And I don't want to sound like a person begging for likes, comments, or shares, but you know how it works for the algorithm. So if you enjoyed this, leave a comment, leave a rating. And I appreciate everyone watching today. And yeah, if you really enjoyed listening to Dave's story, I would highly recommend reaching out to him. He taught me some breath work that really, I mean, it seemed like a DMT trip. I've become a huge fan of breath work. So go please check that out. And I'll be back next week with another podcast with another amazing guest.
It was good.
Deuces. Boom.